3, 2, 1.
I've been a Welsh Rover for many a year.
Hello and welcome to the Blackburn End podcast. I am here once again for our Behind Enemy Lines feature, and we're previewing our upcoming fixture away at Carrow Road against Norwich City. And as you'll see, I'm not on my own. If you want to introduce yourself and your podcast, where we can find you and the pod.
Yeah, so I'm Henry Miller. I'm a Norwich City fan and a contributor to My Football Writer. We've recently relaunched our YouTube channel. You can find us on X at MFW_NCFC, or simply just search My Football Writer on YouTube, and we'll pop up. We do news videos, we do a weekly podcast. So yeah, a load of Norwich City content on there every single week.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Henry. We'll get straight into it. So, in terms of Norwich, how's pre-season gone? How's the transfers? Obviously, you've had a change of manager. How are you shaping up for the season?
Yeah. So, in this season. So, pre-season was a bit of a mixed bag. We played Northampton, which we won, and we fielded two completely separate teams in that game. And then we had pre-season camps in Austria and in Belgium. And I don't think we won any of those games. I know we played a few teams at Carrow Road as well. We played newly promoted St. Pauli and lost that game. And we also played Magdeburg from the second Bundesliga as well. And so the way we're playing and the way we got on the ball and our attacking movements in the final third looked decent, but defensively we did ship a hell of a lot of goals in pre-season, and that was an issue. And that looked to carry over into the opening game of the season, unfortunately for us.
So, in terms of the change of manager, how do you feel about the outgoing and the incoming managers?
Well, it's a strange one because from the outside looking in, people would have seen it last season as David Wagner came in, sort of rejuvenated the squad after the Dean Smith era, which was highly unsuccessful. It clearly didn't work under how successful we've been under Daniel Farke. And despite the fact we finished in the bottom half in his first half season, his only full season at the club, we did finish sixth and did get into the playoffs. Obviously, we got humiliated by Leeds at Elland Road in the second leg of the playoffs. But I think the catalyst in terms of fans' perspective on David Wagner was actually the Blackburn game last season at Carrow Road, the 3-1 win for Blackburn. How David Wagner survived that performance, I do not know. I think that was when the whole fan base inside Carrow Road basically unanimously told David Wagner what they thought of him. And whilst the perhaps style of football didn't change that much, what did change is the fact that Josh Sargent came back from injury, Jonathan Rowe came back from injury, and Ashley Barnes came back from injury. So three key players there. And luckily, our fortunes managed to increase, and we did manage to climb the table. And in fact, that Blackburn defeat was our last defeat at home. So it was really that home form that got us there. But despite the fact that we did get into the top six, no one's opinions of David Wagner did change. And obviously, with Stuart Webber departing for Ben Napper in terms of the sporting director role, everyone sort of knew that Ben Napper wanted his own man when he came through the door. So it's sort of football's Norwich's worst kept secret that David Wagner would be departing in the summer. But Johannes Hoff Torup comes with a lot of promise from FC Nordsjælland in Denmark, and from what I've seen, he's an attacking attack-minded manager who says prioritise youth. So that's a key thing that we were lacking under David Wagner. He tended to go for the more experienced heads in the team rather than maybe creating a pathway for people in our youth system to really kick on and progress. Whereas with Torup, he has promised this. It did feel very Wagner-light against Oxford, with Shane Duffy and Grant Hanley starting as our main two centre-backs. But hopefully from today's game against Stevenage in the Cup onwards, we should see either our new signing, Cordoba, start as the centre-back with one of Duffy or Grant Hanley, or maybe give youth a go. Brad Hills, who's on loan at Accrington last season, he's had a really good pre-season. I think John Coleman gave him the captain's armband for his short stint at Accrington last season as well. So a lot of people are pushing to see him in the team. So yeah, hopefully they can kick on and there is that progression.
Yes, I remember that game. It almost seemed like the writing was on the wall for Wagner before the game, and then the way it started, it just descended, didn't it? And it became relatively straightforward from our point of view. But we've all been there as a football fan, I think, where you just need the game to be done, and then it seemed like I was waiting for the announcement, and it never came.
We all were.
Yeah. So in terms of your hopes and expectations for the season, obviously two different things. What do you hope for and what do you realistically expect out of this season?
I'll be honest. I hope for another season in the top six. I think top two is a long shot. You look at Burnley on yesterday. They look a class above everyone, as do Leeds. So those are the two teams for me who I think are going to get automatic promotion. But I think on paper, the league's probably a lot weaker than what it was last season. So if we got playoffs last season, then there's no reason why we couldn't get it again. But I think realistically, this is going to be a transitional season. It'll be our first full one with Ben Napper in charge. It'll be our first full one with Johannes Hoff Torup in charge as well. And crucially, our first season in a considerable amount of time without parachute payments. So, in terms of the transfers as well, we are having to do things on the cheap, but yeah, those are my hopes that we get top six. But realistically, I think I'd take an 8th or 9th place finish if there is a clear style of play that we can all buy into and a clear progression for youth development. I think that they're the two most important factors for Norwich this season.
So just touched on those there. In terms of transfers, how's your team changed over the summer?
Yeah, so I suppose the big one is Gabriel Sara. He left the club to join Galatasaray. So obviously a huge miss. His natural ability was second to none. One of the most technically gifted players I've seen at my time being a Norwich City fan. So it's a huge miss, but we knew all summer that we were going to lose at least one of our key players. But unfortunately, the week he goes out the door, Jonathan Rowe then goes on strike, it seems, against Oxford United. So apparently he travelled up to Oxford, and then at the team meeting at the hotel in Oxford, he informed Johannes Hoff Torup that he wasn't in the right mindset to play. So now he's training with the under-21s, won't be involved today against Stevenage. And then other journalists were reporting yesterday that he didn't refuse to play, and that it was just purely a tactical decision. So I think his agents have given him some really bad advice there, and they're trying to double down, because if a message has come from our manager saying that he refused to play, then that's the one that I'm certainly going to believe. But I think for Rowe, there's been interest with Leeds as a Somerville replacement, but the only team who've bidded for him are Marseille. And I saw yesterday that they did sign another winger. So whether that deal's off or not, I do not know. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what happens with Rowe. But I guess the other transfer saga for Norwich has been surrounding Adam Eder. So he had a really successful loan spell at the back end of last season with Celtic, and all summer has been dominated about him rejoining Celtic and going back up to Glasgow. Norwich were in talks. It looks like Celtic didn't meet their valuation, and then last night it was announced that we'd agreed a fee with Celtic of £9.5 million, which, yes, Adam Eder is a homegrown player, and he has shown glimpse of being a really good striker and being our number 9. But I don't know how we've got that fee. He is not worth almost £10 million. So for us, that's an absolute steal, really. So I think there will be incomings. I think we'll get a midfielder in. I definitely think we'll get a striker in to challenge Sargent and to be a direct replacement for Adam Eder. And I also think we probably will get a replacement for Jonathan Rowe as well. And I struggle to see a way back from him if there are talks circulating with him already.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, the way players react and the way they do things. Obviously, Smodics has been heavily linked and not been involved that much over pre-season, but was on the bench and wanted to play and came on. Interestingly, £9 million, if you reports will be believed, would buy you Sammy Smodics. So yeah. Any thoughts on Blackburn? Any memories? Obviously, my memories of Norwich started with that man behind, Chris Sutton. Started with the Premier League. I remember one of our first games at home. I think you were top of the league, and Shearer's chip in a 7-1 victory. But I've got some fond memories of playing Norwich, I'll be honest. But yeah, how are your memories of Blackburn?
Yeah, so I guess the biggest memory for me was the fact that Blackburn was our last home game in the 2018-19 season, where we secured promotion to the Premier League. So that was huge for the club. That was our third season away from the top flight after relegation in 2016. And similarly, we were either without parachute payments or it was the last season of parachute payments, I think. Right. To get promoted that season when no one really expected it under Daniel Farker, the fact he finished 14th is his first season was brilliant. So yeah, that is probably my favourite memory of playing Blackburn. But there have been others, and there have been games that I just can't remember. I was looking at the head-to-head meetings between Blackburn and Norwich, and Blackburn have actually won the last 3 games the two sides have played at Carrow Road. One of them was an FA Cup tie 2 seasons ago. I was at that game. Cannot for the life of me remember it. So don't ask me what happened.
I remember that game. It was mainly because just a couple of our players returned from injury that hadn't played for a long time, and it was Bradley Dack played and things like that. So that's the reason I remember it. But yeah, it's a funny old one, isn't it? Moving on to the actual game now. Who do you think we need to watch out for? Obviously, you've got Jonathan Rowe probably won't be playing. Who do we need to watch out for? And how do you think the game's going to go?
Yeah, so I think the main player to look out for is Borja Sainz. He's been at Norwich for a couple of seasons now, and it really came into his own back end of last season. He had quite a good pre-season, and I think he'll really kick on this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if Borja Sainz wins our Player of the Season. I think he's got that tenacity of sort of similar to Emi Buendia. I'm not saying he's as good as Emi Buendia, but he's got that sort of ferocity about him where he's a bit of a maverick. You never really know what you're going to get with Borja Sainz. So, he's definitely one to look out for. And also our new signings. So I think it was on Friday last week, we signed a Ghanaian midfielder called Amankwa Forson from Red Bull Salzburg, I think. Yeah, Red Bull Salzburg in the Austrian League. He made a short little cameo against Oxford, came on at half-time, and he was probably our best player. That being said, he probably performed to a 6 out of 10, but against Oxford, that was enough to get our best player. But I reckon something has to change at centre back as well. So I'd be very shocked if both Shane Duffy and Grant Hanley start at centre half. I think that's what most Blackburn fans want, looking at how both teams performed on the opening day of the season. But yeah, something has to change. And Grant Hanley, especially, he got bought off. I think it was like on the 55 minutes against Oxford, and he wasn't very happy. So the fact that he was pulled off that soon after the restart probably tells you all you need to know, that it's unlikely him and Duffy will start a league game again for Norwich this season.
In terms of Grant Hanley, he is obviously he's Scottish, but he came through the Rovers youth ranks, and he's quite fondly thought of, really. But I mean, I don't think anybody thought he was the greatest of players, but he was fondly thought of in a tough period at Blackburn, really. Shane Duffy, I don't know how much you're aware, but not quite so much. He had a bit of a saga where he wanted to leave the club, and then had possibly the worst performance I've ever seen from a Rovers player, where he scored 2 own goals that were that bad that some fans allegedly suggested that potentially, allegedly, they could have been deliberate, and they managed to get sent off to compound it. So Shane Duffy is not universally liked, let's say, as a Rovers from the Rovers fans. But yeah, so go on then. Let's give us that all important prediction.
If you had to push me, I'd probably say 3-2 to Norwich. I think in front of the home fans at Carrow Road, we're going to be up for it. Like I said, we haven't lost there since November, since Blackburn beat us. So we're going to be up for it. We're going to have a very good home record. It's our first home league game under Johannes Hoff-Torp. So again, another thing to fight for. And yeah, I can see us winning. I think Blackburn will definitely score. Norwich are quite leaky defensively. Both Duffy and Grant Hanley do have a mistake in them. And it seems no matter who's on the pitch for Norwich, we always love to stand off the attackers whenever they go forward. So if you've got players in there like Smodics or Dolan who can find space, then chances are they're going to get efforts away, and they're going to test Angus Gunn in goal. So I think Blackburn will score, but I don't know. For home advantage, you have to back your own team at home. So yeah, 3-2 to Norwich.
Great stuff. Well, thank you for joining us, Henry. Obviously, we'll put all your socials in the comments, and we'll link everything up for you. This will be going out later in this week as we preview to the Norwich game. But thank you for watching, everybody. Remember to like and subscribe, and that is the Blackburn End podcast.